What is up, you guys? This is Ashley Cam with Daily Encouragement. So I wanted to go live on my page today. I want to take some time to watch this interview that Tucker Carlson had just done with Matt Gaetz. I think it's important to listen to because it exposes a lot, excuse me, of the sort of logistics and procedures that go on in our government. Okay. It'll help us understand why we haven't had any investigations, why people don't get arrested as they should. What are the inner workings of the legislative branch? And I think it's important to listen to what he has to say and hear his story. It was very interesting just to kind of, like I said, give the inner workings of what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, you guys. And we're going to watch the first 51 minutes. So if you have time, I definitely encourage you to join me. So I'm going to go ahead and push play on this, you guys, and let's get started.
Wow.
Especially in Florida.
Especially Florida. Exactly. So I just want to start with a clip that I saw this morning that I think is amazing and tells you a lot about a lot. This is from the Jerusalem Post Washington conference this weekend. The man speaking is a guy called Yehuda Kaplan, who I don't think I'd ever heard of before, but now apparently works at the State Department in the Office to Fight Anti-Semitism, which I guess is part of the State Department. And here's what he said. Watch this.
I get off a plane. I am the president's representative, and I am walking off with the yarmulke, and I have kosher food, and embassies will have kosher food. It is a game changer. The appointment is a game changer. And it's not about history. It's about education. And how do we educate? Indonesia has 350 million Muslims living in the country. How do we change their textbooks? How do we hold the people?
First of all, did you guys know that we're paying for textbooks in the UN? So this guy is supposedly going to be working somewhere in the White House, somewhere a part of Trump's cabinet. Okay. Did you guys know we're paying for books for the UN? Look, this is very interesting. Look at our schools in the United States, right? And this guy is more worried about books in other countries. Let's continue.
In Gaza accountable that if America is paying for UN textbooks and supposedly the changes are made, why are those textbooks not being used and why are they using their old textbooks? We have to teach.
Maybe because more people are getting on to government propaganda. That's probably what it is. I think American citizens are realizing it with their own children. These books, these textbooks they have your kids use at school. And then you look at the product and you're like, wait a minute, I thought you went to school, right?
People, it's not okay to.
It shows you that the government wants to use the textbooks, right, to shape the perspective of the next generation, right? That's what he's saying.
Educate your kids to be a martyr, okay? And we have to hold those countries accountable. How do we battle anti-Semitism on the internet? How are we doing better on algorithms? What companies can we work with? We are going to have a whole division.
Do we need to have a group in the White House censoring information again? They're using this on the pretense of anti-Semitism. What about the left when Biden was in office and they were using it on the pretense of public safety? And now look what happened. The very thing that they were covering up, now there's black box warning on COVID vaccines. This is no different. There should be no censorship or no of them working with other companies to control information no matter what it is. Okay? Let's continue.
Within the office of the Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism that is going to work on technology and working with the greatest leaders in technology, many of whom are Jewish and have offered their assistance. The office is going to be revamped entirely to be one of the highest profile offices in the State Department.
Nothing will convince Indonesia to come our way, like sending Rabbi Yehuda is probably my
How do we
guess.
hold the people of Gaza accountable?
So
Yeah, okay.
there is truth to the claim that in the pedagogy that is administered in a lot of places, there's incitement. Maya the martyr is a character.
No doubt.
And that is awful, and U.S. taxpayers shouldn't fund it, and we ought to hold anyone accountable who does. At the same time, like the definition of anti-Semitism in recent times, according to some of the Israel First crowd in the United States, has really migrated. Like, this isn't my line, but I certainly associate it with. Anti-Semitism used to mean somebody who didn't like Jews. Now it just means somebody Jews don't like. And
That's not a standard that we can live with because the reason anti-Semitism is terrible, it's against my religion. I'm totally opposed to it. And by the way, it does result in violence. I think we just saw that, and I hate it. But anti-Semitism is wrong because hating anyone on the basis of their DNA is always wrong. It's a universal principle. It does not apply to one group, my group or your group. It applies to all groups. And if it doesn't apply to all groups, then it's not a principle, and I can just ignore it, right? So
yeah, but
that's the problem I have here.
Yeah, but the U.S. ambassador to France, Jared Kushner's father, says that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And I don't.
You know, it's interesting. Have you guys ever paid attention to the amount of people in some sort of government influence and then the ties that they have, the connections they have with other foreign governments? Like, we need to be concerned about that and figure out, who these people are all working with.
I don't believe that. I think that you can be critical of foreign policy choices that a country makes without the assumption that you hate the religion or the ethnic group associated with that.
Have you guys noticed that if you question the government of Israel, you get labeled an anti-Semite or whatever? You hate Jews? That's absolutely disgusting. I've come to realize that a Zionist is just somebody who supports the government or the state of Israel. In order for it to be a state, obviously they're going to have to make decisions. So they have to have a government set up to make decisions for their state. But is it possible that you could have a Zionist that's completely godless? Do we have Zionists in Israel who actually attack like Orthodox Jews? Why do Christians support this whole Zionism thing if they don't understand the whole inner workings of it? What if the people that are governing Israel are doing terrible things to other people? And, should we as Christians, if we're going to support a government over there, shouldn't we know who's running it and what kind of people they are? What if they were some really godless people? Should we still support them? These are just questions that I have. A lot of Christians are on board with Zionism, and I understand, like, okay, Israel be their own country. That's fine. But if we're going to be involved, if the United States is going to be involved with the government of Israel in any kind of way, shouldn't there be some sort of accountability within the government? Which is sort of like a joke, right? That's like demanding accountability in the United States government. We're not even getting it in our own. Christians voted in certain people, I thought, because, we try to vote people in who acknowledge God. What if we were supporting a government that didn't acknowledge God at all and could care less about him? Is that possible? I think that these are important questions that Christians need to ask.
That country, like when I was critical of Joe Biden, that didn't make me anti-Catholic. And when I'm critical of Benjamin Netanyahu, that doesn't make me anti-Semitic.
Well, I agree with that. And I do think there has been a rise, I just notice it, in people hating Jews, disliking Jews, anti-Semitism. I think that's real in the United States. But I think you could probably fix that in a week.
How?
By getting Jewish groups like the ADL, like the American Jewish Congress, like whatever group Yehuda Kaplan runs, to come out against anti-white hate, which is institutionalized in the United States. And if you had the ADL and the SPLC and these groups that have fought against anti-Semitism for all these years make the obvious and true point that hatred of anybody on the basis of how they're born is immoral, and we won't stand for it. And in the United States, the institutionalized hate is anti-white, of course, and from getting.
What do you guys think? Do you agree with Tucker on that? Do you agree that the same energy we put into not hating Jews or blacks, what about white people? Has anybody seen that? And that's another reason why the Gen Zers have been so upset, is because of the, programmed, sort of the white guy is the enemy to everything good in the country. How do you think these guys feel? Right. And so it's putting people back into that sort of identity type thinking instead of looking at the reasons and the arguments that are being presented. Right. They automatically assume that you are bad because of the color of your skin. Right. Anyway, let's continue.
I think there has been people hating Jews just like Jews. I think that's real in the end. But I think that by getting groups to come out against hate, which is in the United States. And if you have these groups that have fought against him for all these years make the obvious point that hatred we won't stand for it. In the States, the hate is anti-white, of course, prevented from getting federal grants, prevented from getting admitted to college. That's still in place.
But you know why that hasn't happened?
I don't understand. You know what I don't understand?
Well, there
why.
Isn't a sufficient monetization path there, the way it is when the ADL and similarly aligned groups try to make the American people think that anti-Semitism is hiding behind every bush.
Then I know it's not real. Okay, so if I get up and say it's only wrong when people attack people like me, then everyone knows that I'm not defending a principle, I'm defending a group interest.
Right.
And I can ignore your group's interests. I cannot ignore a universal principle. And the universal principle is that kind of hatred is always wrong no matter who it's aimed at. So why doesn't the ADL stand up and do that? I would send money to the ADL if they did that. I would send money to the ADL. I would. And I despise the ADL because that would be a defense of what's true and so needed. Why won't they do that?
Well, when you're a witch hunter, you have to first convince people of the existence of witches. And so I think that for the broad goals of the ADL, they have to make the country believe that we are somehow aligned against the Jewish faith and against.
But what they're saying is
goals.
It's okay to discriminate against white Christians, but it's immoral to discriminate against Jews? No, it's immoral to discriminate against Jews and white Christians and black people and Indonesians and every group on the basis of their DNA, period.
Well, there has to be a villain. And that's what white people have become in this really threat-constructed environment around identity.
Well, I've actually reached out to those groups and said, I will make common cause with you. I'll support you. I'll send you money if you will just defend the principle. And that would include defending.
No, you never heard these people during the DEI craze.
They didn't say one word. They were for it. They were for discriminating against whites because those kids who've been shafted by anti-white hate as institutionalized in every big company and every government agency in the whole United States and Western Europe. Those people are mad. And where was Yehuda Levin during that? Where was Bill Ackman during that? And my point is, come over to the side of universal principles of light and truth, and let's make common cause against all forms of hate. And if you won't do that, then I'm not taking you seriously.
Yeah, and no one should take them seriously because they are an advocacy group for a particular ethnic group, and that is fine.
Well, how's that different from like Ilhan Omar and the Somalis?
Well, I think that in a lot of ways there are similarities when like ethno-nationalism is the objective, and obviously ethno-nationalism is the objective in Israel. It's the organizing principle of
That's
the
fine. That's not our country,
of the country.
Yeah.
But oftentimes people are pursuing the policies here in the United States that benefit Israel and our own interests and the interests of our people. And the plight you described that so many young people have endured is not a priority.
White young people. That's why they're mad. Why do you think they're mad? Because they've been told that the country they were born in, like, officially discriminates against them. That's ongoing.
I don't think it's just even white people. I think it's also non-white people who see the attack on white culture not as an attack on like colonialism, but as an attack on success and progress and order.
So
I know a lot of non-white people. They're like, actually, this anti-white activity that's going on is going to make me less prosperous and less safe. And I'm kind of here, like, for all the criticisms we as whites have taken, we did an okay job setting up an orderly world, and we made some mistakes along the way, and you've got to reconcile those. But at the end, what society would you replace with like what we've set up in the Western world? Is there some like vision of the way civilizations were built in Africa or the Far East that we would gleefully adopt?
So imagine moving here because it's a white country founded by white people, and getting here and being like, yeah, I want to be part of that, and which I get 100%. And then you get here and the first thing you learn is white people are bad.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that must be weird.
I think that this is shifting the other way. I really think during the excesses of the post-George Floyd era, people attached so strongly to identity. And, I sense a real pushback against that. And like you talk about like learning it, right? The main place people learn still is in the school system. Right now, public education is essentially a failing enterprise, and all of the innovation is to take people out of that system, and then people will self-select what they learn, and that may be more productive.
This is one of my closest friends. This is Brookie. Okay. She's not our only dog, but she's our head dog. I hunt with her. She sleeps next to me in bed every night. She's 4.5. And smarter than any executive at Fox News. This is a really impressive dog. But I think we all think our dogs are impressive and great, and we love them. And I know that if anything ever happened to this dog, there would be no limit to what I would do to help her. And so vet bills can really stack up. Thank heaven she's been healthy. But for a lot of people, including close friends of mine, it can be crushing. And so when we started talks with the company we're now in partnership with, Dutch Pet, about how they're approaching veterinary care, $82 a year for unlimited care, I just thought that can't be real, but it is real. Yeah, Dutch Pet, if you're watching this right now, use the code Tucker from this show. If you care about your dogs, if you care about your animals, if it's real to you, check it out. $82 a year for unlimited veterinary care. You'd pay anything, but you shouldn't have to.
That's unheard of, right? Anyway,
I think you're right. So I think what you're saying. Well, I want to get to the thing that really bothered me about the statement from Yehuda Kaplan, who apparently now runs the State Department. He just told us, I did not vote for this, just to be clear, period. Any of what I just saw, yeah, that guy. But you're saying maybe I should calm down a little bit because, like, who cares? History's passing this whole conversation by.
I'm not saying who cares, because that was a disgusting display of, I think, parochial interest that you just saw.
Yes, that's correct.
But we see that often, so I don't get too worked up about it. The bigger issue is that Rabbi Yehuda would probably classify you and I as anti-Semitic because we've been critical of some of the policy choices of the Israeli government. And that broad application of anti-Semitism, to say anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, to say that even some things in the Bible may be deemed anti-Semitic if they're critical of Jews at any point. It has created such a...
Okay, I'm just going to say something. I don't know how this is going to fall, but I think it needs to be said. How many times did God criticize his own people? Right? Like, he would be like, what are you guys doing? There's nothing wrong with people asking for an account of another group of people, especially if the governments are going to be involved together. Right? It just doesn't make any sense why questioning policies is considered hate. No, actually, we should question policies because they're the ones that are making decisions. And if we as United States citizens are getting on board with these policies, and if they are doing terrible things, what are we as Christians going to say to God about doing that? Oh, sorry, Lord, we had no idea. We just went ahead and supported something, and we didn't ask any questions because we were more worried about our reputations or them saying that we didn't trust you, or we were more worried about the warped interpretations of the Bible, right? Or how many, that's the other thing. There's a lot of Christians that don't even read their Bible. I think only, 8% or 11% of Christians read their Bible. So you mean to tell me we've got 88% of the Christian population that gets their interpretations from people online of what the Bible means? What if you're being misled? What if you're allowing destructive things to happen all in the name of you, and then you're using God's word to do it? I think that's really bad.
A curiosity among young people to test those mores and challenge those dogmas. Right. Like, I think there are a lot of like the Mark Levin Israel First crowd who look at us and say like, we're the problem. Tucker and Matt are the problem. Actually, we're not the problem. The problem is you lost us.
Oh, I know.
They show these old videos of you being very complimentary of Israel and critical of Israel's critics. You could easily find a lot of my library speaking totally on the floor of the Congress supporting a strong and robust U.S.-Israel relationship. So two people who in our 30s were incredibly supportive of this relationship have come untethered, and it is because the relationship has become too burdensome, and friends should be able to tell that to each other. Totally and when you do, that doesn't make you a bad friend. I still consider myself pro-Israel. I think that what the Netanyahu government is doing to Israel is bad for Israel, much in the way the United States created more terrorists than we killed during the